Okay, great. Hey, everybody. So I'm Jamie. I'm from the Accessibility Digital Experience team. And we're all here to talk a little bit about assistive technology, what it is, how it works, show you some examples for folks who are new to it. So long story short, um, people have different kinds of disabilities. Maybe they have visual disabilities where they are low vision or they're blind. Maybe they have movement disabilities where they have tremors and using a mouse is difficult. They could have hearing disabilities where they can't hear text, they can't hear things out loud. Maybe they're deaf, maybe they're low hearing. Um, and there are other kinds of disabilities. There's cognitive disabilities, where people have trouble understanding certain things. So there's a lot of different types. Um, and we humans are pretty amazing and have come up with a bunch of different assistive technologies to help us out when we have those conditions, to allow us to access things that would be hard to do otherwise. Um, we can navigate a website with a keyboard instead of a mouse. We can add captions to a video. Um, we can have the screen read things out loud to us, among other things. Um, so at VA, something like 40 or 50% of veterans have some sort of disability. There's a good shot that a good chunk of those have disabilities that would affect how they use the internet. Um, we don't know exact numbers of, say, who uses what assistive technology or what kind of disability someone has. This is all personal health information, so it's secure. So we don't know that. We can't track that. But what we can do is make sure that the stuff we build actually works for people who use this technology so that, they have equal access to everything. That's kind of the idea. So I think the goal here was to show you a few different kinds that people use, which could give you a sense of how different people navigate VA.gov as an example, what issues they might come across, maybe the kinds of things we do to help them along. So I'm currently talking to you from my MacBook, um, and I'll show you a couple of things here. Uh, you'll see that I have two instances open. That's because I also have myself on GFE, and I'm gonna switch to GFE at some point. So, but we'll start on the MacBook. So I'm gonna share my full screen here. Let me close out a couple of things. I hope you all like my orange and strawberry background. So here's VA.gov. And the first thing to show you is something probably most of you use every day, which is browser zoom, which is just Command plus or Control plus on your keyboard, depending on if you're on a Mac or a PC, right? So we like almost everyone uses this to zoom in a little bit when the text is too small. So what's the issue here? The issue is that there are many, 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 many websites that don't account for this when they're built. So when we zoom in, see how everything kind of reflows? The navigation changes, it kind of shrinks down, everything kind of stacks in a column. This is actually what happens on the when you're on a phone as well. Zooming in ends up being the equivalent of a mobile view of a website. But a lot of sites aren't designed that way. And what ends up happening is that when you zoom in using just your standard browser zoom, stuff overlaps, content is cut off. It's like literally inaccessible in a technical sort of way. Like you can't access the content. So VA.gov, we're very careful to make sure that everything lines up when you zoom in, and it's one of the accessibility checks that everyone's required to do. The WCAG standard is 200%, but we actually go up to 400% because we know that veterans, like, we've seen veterans go up to 800% during research. So that's kind of what this is for. And this is assistive technology that you probably use all the time. There's another kind of way in the browser to increase the size of the text, and it's called text scaling. So if you go into the settings here, and you look for the word text, and I'm actually gonna do browser zoom so you can read it a little better. There is, let me find it. Actually, I think in Chrome I would look up the word font to find the setting. Here we go. There's a setting called font size here in Chrome. By default, it's set to medium, but I can set it to very small. I can set it to very large. If I set it to very large, the text should scale up. So note that the browser zoom is 100% right now, but the text got really, really big, and I can keep going. The combination of text scaling and browser zoom, I can go pretty darn big, and people do. It's just another way of making the text bigger. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting here, see the little US government banner up here? This actually didn't increase in size, but everything within the banner did. This is a bug. That actually needs to be fixed. I might have reported it before, I can't remember. But that's what text scaling is. The issue with text scaling, as you can see here, sometimes font sizes are set in absolute sizes in pixels rather than in dynamic scaling systems, which you don't really need to know as a content person. What you do need to know is if someone does this and the text is still small, that's why. And it's a bug. So that's something that people do. There's another thing you can do, and that's why I'm sharing my whole screen. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. I'm not sure if you can. This is on a Mac. There's Windows equivalents. If I go into the accessibility menu here, on Mac it's called Zoom, which is very frustrating, but it's a magnification app, or feature, I should say. I'm gonna see if it lets me, if you can actually see this. Let's see. Does it work? You can give me a thumbs up or not. If you look at the top of the monitor, do you see like a blown up version of what's below? I can try to grab a screenshot if it doesn't work. But it essentially acts like a magnifying glass. So instead of, increasing the size of elements on the page, you're holding a digital magnifying glass up to it. And that's another way that people with low vision use a web page. And what ends up happening here, I don't know if you can see it, so I'm going to, oh, I see in the chat. Let me take a look. Yeah, Max Zoom doesn't show. Okay, that's all right. I'll turn it off. One moment. I'm going into the settings. I turned it off for myself because it's a little tricky to work with if you don't need it. What ends up happening here, I'm going to use browser zoom just to demonstrate. So imagine you're zoomed in and you see, let us help you. And whether you're a veteran, and that's pretty much all you see because you're holding up a magnifying glass to the screen. What ends up happening is that sometimes, depending on how the content is structured, it's really easy to miss something or scan past something. because you're very, very focused on the left side of the page in English, which is left to right. So that's why we like to left align things, because when it's centered, it's so easy to miss if you're using a magnifier. Yeah, Cindy.
If I could just add something
Yeah,
in
please,
and
please.
say that I've seen in research sessions before, if somebody's scanning down the left side of the page, this in VA.gov, you can see there's that create account button that's over on the right. If they're really only seeing let us help you, they might not even know that there's something to the right that they should scroll over to find. So that's an example of something they could miss if you don't left align everything.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a great example, and it's not, and obviously we don't left align every single thing on the page, but it's something we consider a lot because of this, because of our user base. Um, and we tend not to center things in particular for this reason. Um, I don't know if you'd call this assistive technology, but it's pretty important. So many people can't use a mouse, or maybe find it uncomfortable to use because they have carpal tunnel, but or maybe they have tremors, or who knows what. Maybe they don't have a hand to use. Um, so lots of people just use a keyboard to navigate, and the way you do that essentially is by tabbing around. You press tab, and you can see there's like an outline around the thing that has focus. It's called a focus outline or a focus indicator. VA does a good job of making sure that everything gets this outline. So if I'm not using a mouse, I know where I am on the page. That's what this is for. Um, there are many websites where if you try this out, you'll find that tabbing around, you have no idea where you are because there's no outline, or they actually removed it on purpose for stylistic reasons, usually, is what happens. Um, but it means that it's suddenly inaccessible to a ton of people because you don't know where you are on the site. Um, but we do, which is great. One issue with VA styles currently, as of June 2026, is that the color contrast, that yellow, between the yellow and the background of white, is actually not high enough, and it's something the design system team is working on fixing. So if you ever see that come up in a 508 audit, that's what's going on. Um, the other thing to know about keyboard is that there are standard controls to do things using a keyboard. If something is a link, I should be able to press enter to activate it, to take me to a new page. Um, and the first thing I tab to on a page should be a skip link, so I can skip past all the navigation and stuff on the top that I don't want to access every single page. And it takes me right down to the content. And again, VA does a good job of this. A lot of websites don't. Um, there are also buttons. I'm going to use my mouse to save time here. The expand all and collapse all are buttons, and I should be able to use enter or spacebar to activate these. Or just spacebar. Spacebar is the main keyboard control for buttons. This is standard. This is built in to HTML. So something that we'll check is if someone builds a custom thing, uh, do the keyboard controls work the way people expect them to? So this is another form of assistive technology. Um, One quick thing we consider with keyboard navigation is check out this feedback button. When I open the feedback, this is a modal, right? So one thing we try to do is help people not get too horribly lost on a page. So when a modal opens up, we try to make sure that when someone closes the modal, that focus actually stays on that button, which it does now. It didn't used to do that, and we fixed it, which was awesome. That's the kind of thing we're trying to consider. So that's magnification. That's the basics of keyboard use. Um, Folks with movement issues use other kinds of assistive tech too. There are switches that have two buttons on them. Where there's like a timed control, and you press the button when it's hovering over the thing you want. There's eye tracking, where there's a device that actually reads where your eye is on the screen, and if you hover on something long enough, it'll like do the equivalent of double click on it. Like there's a lot of different things. Um, but that's kind of how this all works. Um, Now, since we're here on a Mac, I might as well show you VoiceOver while we're here. Um, so just for context, among our user base, and this is something we know because we can look at Google Analytics, most of our users, or the majority at least, are either on an iOS device or a Windows-based device. They're not on Mac OS, which is what I'm on now. And VoiceOver is different on a phone than it is on a computer. So what I'm showing you is what's on a computer. Um, this is also what most of the contractors use because most of us are on Macs. But this is just one screen reader. There are others, and I'm going to show you a few. Um, and they're all a little different. So the way a screen reader works, super quick before I turn it on, because it's a little noisy. Basically, what it lets you do is, as you navigate around a web page or anything on your computer, it's going to announce a bunch of stuff. It's going to announce this text, VA healthcare, but it's also going to tell you that this is a heading. This is heading level 1. It's going to tell you get VA healthcare, and it's also going to tell you that this is a link, right? Um, that's why when the accessibility folks bug everyone about semantic HTML and use links for navigation and buttons for doing things and use proper heading structure and all of that, like that's why, because that's how people who use screen readers are able to understand what's on this page, how is it structured. Without that, it gets pretty confusing to navigate around. Um, Screen readers are very adaptable, so I'm gonna pull up the settings because this is something I didn't know when I started, and I think it's important. Um, if I go to accessibility and to VoiceOver, this is built in to Mac. So I can go into VoiceOver settings, and this is probably a little hard to see, but we'll give it a shot. There's a lot I can actually do here. I can change the verbosity, meaning I can change how much VoiceOver is telling me at any given moment. By default, it's set to high, but I could set it lower. Um, a lot of our folks, our users, don't know about this, and people get kind of frustrated. Oh, screen reader's so noisy, but you can actually turn it down a little bit. Um, there's a ton of settings here that you can alter to your liking as the screen reader user. But we recommend, if you're ever going to try this out, leave it at its defaults because that's what most people are doing. And it's kind of like the default way a person will hear it. Um, so what I'm going to do real quick, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to reshare with sound so that you hear what the screen reader is saying more easily. So I'm sharing my screen again, but this time I'm going to turn on VoiceOver.
VoiceOver on Chrome. VA Healthcare Vertical Line Veterans Affairs Google Chrome. Window. Tab search. Menu pop-up. Pop-up button.
So you can see what's highlighted here,
Group.
right? And what VoiceOver
Notification.
told me. It told me the name of the button, what the button's for. It gave me a way to activate it. It gave me a lot. If I go onto
U.S.
the
flag,
website
veteran
itself,
link, help for veterans who are homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. List 5 items.
so it's telling me this is a link. Here's what the link is called. It's part of a list. There's probably 5 links here.
Link, get VA health care. You are
Maybe that's what I'm interested in. So I will select this link.
heading level 2, get VA health care article.
It took me to an H2. Great. And now I can kind of go through and read this line by line and see what's here.
List 8 items.
Okay.
You are visited. Link, about VA health benefits. 1 of 8. Learn how VA health care works and which veterans health care services we cover. Link, eligibility. 2 of 8. Find out if you're eligible for veterans health care benefits and how priority groups work. Link, eligibility.
So
You
I
are
can go
find
backwards
out
and
if you're
forward.
link, eligibility.
Maybe that's what I want to see, and I load the page.
Eligibility for VA healthcare vertical line Veterans Affairs. Website web content busy. Web content.
Eligibility for VA Healthcare Veterans Affairs, that is the page title, like the HTML title. And that's why we're very insistent on what those titles should be, because when a page loads, that's what a screen reader user actually hears.
Here's link. Skip to content.
I can skip to
You
the
are current
content.
heading level 1. Eligibility for VA healthcare. Eligibility for VA healthcare article.
So that got me past all of the navigation, right? And took me right to the content.
Find out if you can get VA health care as a heading level 2 information alert. Level all veterans who meet basic service and discharge requirements and
so you can kind of see how this works. It's giving me all the semantic information I need to understand everything and the content too. One thing it lets me do, which is how most people now end up using a screen reader. Let me see if I have the shortcut right.
headings menu.
Okay.
On item 2.
This is called the rotor menu. And basically I can navigate a website via heading.
3. If you enlisted after September. 3. If you're a current or 3. If you served in certain locations and time periods during the Vietnam War era.
And then the person might say, oh, that's me. I'm going to go to that heading.
Heading level 3. If you served in certain locations and you're eligible for VA health care.
Oh,
Keep
great.
reading to learn more.
So that's how you navigate by heading, and that's why headings are so important. The rotor
Headings menu.
lets
Form
you
controls
navigate
menu.
by a lot of different things, by form
Landmarks
controls, by landmarks.
main.
Like I can jump straight to the main part of the page,
Breadcrumb
or I
nav.
can go to the breadcrumbs if I want to.
Main
Or the
footer.
Maybe I need to see something in the footer.
Veteran programs and services. And 4 more items. And 4 more items. Group.
So people kind of navigate, like if you think about, if you're sighted, you kind of view a website in 2 dimensions. You're going across and you're going up and down, and you can kind of access all of that at the same time. If you're unsighted and a screen reader user, you're basically going in a straight line. You're going from point to point to point, and you can jump between points. And that's how people tend to navigate. There's a lot of shortcuts you can use. There's a lot of, like, again, there's stuff in the rotor menu. There's all these different settings, but that's essentially what people are doing. You can also change the speed of your screen reader. Mine is set pretty, I would say, normal default speed, but experienced screen reader users turn it up to like 2 times that, 3 times that. Like it can get to the point where the researcher might not even understand what it's saying because it's going so fast, because it's a lot of text. But that's how people get around. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to turn off VoiceOver. Also note in the corner here, this is like where it's telling me what it says. That's like a developer setting. I have that turned on because I do a lot of testing, but an actual screen reader user is not likely to have this on because they don't really need it. Some people will, but most people won't.
VoiceOver off.
I'm going to stop sharing. So that's kind of how all of this works. Now I know that, again, since most of the users are on Windows or iOS, they're not going to be using macOS VoiceOver. They're going to be using likely JAWS or NVDA, which is another screen reader. It's a free screen reader. It's open source. Um, and they have some differences with VoiceOver. So I think the next step is I'm going to mute myself on this computer and go to the other computer and show you a couple of other things. Oh, that's a great comment. For anyone watching later, Layla says, I'm surprised how robotic the voice sounds. And yes, that is the default screen reader voice is rather robotic. Um, there are modern screen reader voices that people can choose to use that have more of a flow to them. And some people choose to do that, and some people choose not to. And there's reasons for both that we can talk about later. But this is kind of what's baked in, and then you can change it. So, super quick, going on mute, be right back. Okay, oh, one second. Okay, let's try that again. Sorry about that. Okay, my camera's a little weird on my GFE, so I'm just going to not use the camera. Hopefully that's okay. So now I'm on my GFE. This is Windows. I'm going to share my screen again.
JAWS. Page has 5 regions, 30 headings and 84 links. There are one smart glance highlights on this page.
So Jamie, we can hear JAWS, but not you. Is that the intent?
Picture in picture window. Assistive technology. Modal dialog. Your screen sharing. Stop sharing.
Okay. Can you hear me right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm gonna try this again.
Entire screen group. Entire screen button to activate. Press space bar.
All right. Let's see if this works.
App.zoom.assist sharing your screen. App.new tab page. VA.gov home vertical bar.
Can you hear me now?
Document. VA.gov home vertical.
Yes.
Oh, amazing. Okay. Here's something to know if you're on GFE, we are not allowed to have Zoom installed on this thing, right? So we're all joining in the browser. In browser Zoom, if you share your system audio, which is what I accidentally did, it's going to mute you. Like it mutes your microphone. So I forgot that. And here we are. So this is JAWS. The voice is a little different in using JAWS.
VA.gov home vertical bar Veterans Affairs. Here's how you know button collapsed. To activate, press enter.
JAWS also likes to give you instructions so that
content same banner region. Here's how you know button collapsed. To activate, press enter.
To activate, press enter. That's not something anyone wrote. That is baked into JAWS because of how the code is written, because it's a button and because it's been coded with something that says it's currently collapsed. So that's not anything we need to do. We just need to code it right.
Enter expanded. .gov graphic.
So you heard .gov graphic. That is the alt text for this image.
Here's .gov graphic.
I don't think that's good alt text. I think that should be fixed. But that's how JAWS announces graphics, with the word graphic.
The .gov means it's official. Federal government SSL graphic.
SSL graphic. So the alt text, by the way, is not SSL graphic. It's just SSL. It adds graphic itself at the end. And that's why we always tell people, don't put the word image or graphic or whatever as part of your alt text, because it's going to give you that by default. I'm just going to tab around a little bit.
Talk to the Veterans Crisis Line Now button to activate. Press enter. File logo and seal U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs link graphic to activate. Press enter. Search button collapsed to activate. Press enter. Chat from Layla to everyone is there. Alt text for the X on the modal. We had problems with that when I was at HRSA.
Which modal are we talking about?
Chat from Layla to everyone.
Feedback modal. Yeah, we can check that. Okay, so here's something that JAWS users tend to do. There's a lot of keyboard shortcuts. I can press H
to
go between the headings.
Let us help you get started. Heading level 2. Create an account to manage your VA benefits and care in one place. M-anytime from search. Heading level 2.
So that's a quick way people navigate. There's also one B for button, so I can navigate between all the buttons.
Search button. Feedback button.
So that's a quick way to get there.
Enter. Main region. Feedback button to activate. Press enter. Enter.
Ooh, it's being slow right now. Also, let me get this window out of the way.
Johnny Chan.
There we go.
VA.gov home. VA.gov home vertical bar Veterans Affairs. Main region. Feedback form. Feedback button to activate. Press enter. Enter.
This is actually really weird that it's not opening up. I've never had this problem before. We'll try again later. Here's another good thing to know.
Form region. Sign up to get the latest VA updates. Email address left parent star required. Right parent edit required. Blank. Type of text.
Okay, so I know that was fast, but it told us a few things. There was a little boop or a beep at the beginning. That told us that JAWS was entering what it calls forms mode. So basically what I can do, I can use up and down arrows and just go between stuff on the page.
Learn more about heading level 3 link. Learn to heading level 5.
So this is just me using the arrows.
Apply for a heading. Find out heading level 2.
Oh, there we go. There's an error. I've never seen this before. That's fascinating. Anyway,
level, learn more feedback button.
Now what happens when I enter a form field, a radio button, text input?
Heading level 2, sign email address, sign up to get the latest
I need to be able to type. So the way JAWS is automatically set up is when you get to, you're arrowing around and you get to a form field like this, it automatically enters forms mode, and that lets you enter into form fields, essentially. It lets you access them. The default mode,
button to activate present,
which is called browse mode, it doesn't let you do that. And there's technical reasons for that we don't need to go into. The point is, if you hear this beep,
form region, sign up.
You're in forms mode. That's all you need to know.
Form region, sign up to get the latest updates. Email address left parent star required. Right parent edit required. Blank.
So you heard the word required twice. So the first thing it announced was the visual text there, star required. The second thing it announced is there's something in the code that actually makes it programmatically required. So sometimes things get a little duplicated that way, but it does ensure that everyone knows that the field is required. I'm using the mouse super quick. I'm just going to go somewhere else on the site for the heck of it.
Wait, Jamie, before you go, I didid't hear the beep. Can you go back out and then back in and see?
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully it comes through, because I can't share system audio, and if it doesn't, I'll try to grab a recording for you guys.
VA.gov home vertical bar Veterans Affairs main read feedback button to activate form region. Sign up to get the latest feedback button.
It's like boop boop when you enter and leave.
So I'm not hearing it. Are other people hearing it?
All right.
I'm not hearing it either.
All right. I'll try to grab a little clip of it and share it with you later. It's just a limitation of having to share without being able to share system audio. Maybe it's just not loud enough to come through. I'll just do a little more to give you the gist here.
Enter loading page. Contact us vertical bar Veterans Affairs. Contact us vertical bar Veterans Affairs. Loading complete.
So it gives me the title. It tells me when loading is complete, which is really nice.
Contact us vertical bar Veterans Affairs. Skip to content same page link to activate. Press enter.
It tells me it's a same page link. That's really good to know, and it's coded that way, right? That's another thing where you get that for free if you code it correctly.
Enter heading level 1. Contact us. Main region. Contact us heading level 1. Get answers to your questions about VA benefits and services. Ask us a question online.
I can also press Control to have JAWS stop whatever it's saying. So that's what I've been doing. I've been interrupting JAWS.
Other resources. Heading level 2. Information alert. Need help with your login.gov or ID.me sign-in account. Read these resources to get information. Step-by-step guidance and support for common issues. List with 4 items. Creating a sign-in account for VA. Creating an account. Verifying your identity for your sign-in account for VA. Support for common login.gov and
a lot of information.
Support on this page. Navigation region. List with 7 items. Need help with your login.
So in the code, they actually named the list that it's in. They gave it a role of navigation so that users know that it's navigation. They can actually use that rotor number to navigate to it. Yeah, let me find something that goes to another page. Like find a VA location. Let's do that.
Find the VA location link to activate. Press enter.
So by default, it's just going to say it's a link. Press enter to activate it. If it's a same page link, if it's coded correctly, it'll tell you that it's a same page link. If it's an external link, it doesn't know that unless you say so. That's why we have the, opens a new tab text, because there's no other way for someone to know that.
Enter loading page. Find VA locations vertical bar Veterans Affairs. Find VA locations vertical bar Veterans Affairs. Loading complete. Page has 5 regions, 10 headings, and 57 links. There are 1 smart glance highlights on this page.
So it gave this little summary when the page loaded. How many links, how many headers, how many this and that, which can give people a sense of what's on this page. That's also something you can turn off. But it's again why the semantic HTML thing is so important, because that's how the assistive technology knows what's going on here. I'm just going to navigate by heading.
Find VA locations heading level 1. Warning alert: what to know about community healthcare facilities heading level 2. If you go to a community care facility, call first to confirm they can provide the care you need, because facilities may move or experience. Find VA locations vertical bar Veterans Affairs. Main. Enter a zip code or a city and state. Left parent star required. Right parent edit combo collapsed blank. To set the value, use the arrow keys or type the value.
So when I entered that, it gave me a lot of stuff. The first thing it did is it said enter a zip code or city or state. So something we harp on about a lot is that in the code, you have to associate the label, like that visual label, enter a zip code, with the input. If they're just next to each other, but there's nothing in the code putting them together as a unit, it's not going to do that. It's just going to announce text input blank. And then a user will have no idea what the text input is for. So that's why we do that. It also gave us some instructions that we could use arrow keys to set, which is very interesting because actually that doesn't work. So I'm probably going to look into that after this call. So JAWS likes to give instructions based on how something is coded. So, for example, if something is coded as a range slider where you pick, 1 through 5 on a slider, and it's coded correctly, JAWS is actually going to give you instructions. It's going to tell you, use the arrow keys to pick from the slider, which is cool. It's going to give you that. If it isn't coded correctly, it's not going to give you those instructions. And that's why it's so important to get that code right, because manually writing instructions doesn't really work most of the time because different screen readers have different instructions. So, what JAWS needs you to do would be different than what VoiceOver needs you to do.
Select a facility type, left parent star required, right parent combo box required. Dash select dash. To change the selection, use the arrow keys.
See how it said to change the selection, use the arrow keys? That's because this is a select. It's a combo box, so that's a baked-in control.
Health, urgent care, emergency care, community providers, left parent, and VAS network, right parent.
And this is what people do.
Select a provider type, left parent star required, right parent, edit combo collapsed blank. To set the value, use the arrow keys or type the value.
Use the arrow keys. That's fascinating.
There we go. 3 results are available. Use up and down arrow keys to navigate. 12 results are available. List box.
12 results are available. Like, it's giving me a lot of information.
Enter. Select a provider type, left parent star. Search button to activate. Press enter. Enter. Error. Enter a zip code or a Zydian state in the search box. Enter a zip code or a Zydian state. Left parent star required. Right parent edit combo collapsed.
So there's an error here. I forgot to enter the zip code. It told me it was required. That's on me. When there was an error, we have, well, it's not we, it's, the design system team. We've coded errors so that they pop you back up to where the error takes place, and it announces an error notification. Like, what is the error? This can be a problem on a lot of other websites that aren't considering this. The error might not be associated with that input box, so you don't hear it when you tab to it. Or maybe focus doesn't move at all, and you're just kind of stuck on the search button. You don't even know there's an error. So you don't know how to fix it. But we kind of handle all of that. We've programmed that in.
960. 1 result for 07960. Enter a zip code or a Zydian state. Enter a zip code or a Zydian state. Left parent star required. Right parent edit combo collapsed. Morristown, New Jersey 07960. United States. To set the value, use the.
So that was pretty good. And now I'll
search
go.
Button to activate. Press enter.
I'll go to the search.
Enter a zip code or a Zydian state. Left parent star required. Right parent edit combo collapsed. Morristown, New Jersey 07960. United States. To set the value, use the arrow keys or type the value. Showing 1-16 of 16 results for chiropractor services and community providers. Left parent and VAS network.
So this is something, again, that VA has purposely done. It has moved focus, like, manually in the code to showing 1-16 of 16 results. That's not baked into HTML. That's something we actually have to do ourselves. But doing that puts the screen reader user in the right place to find the search results. They're told immediately, here's how many results there are for the thing you searched for, and they can just go down.
Taylor Jonathan, 1.1 miles, 25 Lindsley DRC to Morristown, NJ07960-4. Get directions on Google Maps to Taylor Jonathan. Link to activate. Press enter.
Here's another thing we do. You see that I can use arrow keys, but I can also tab around. When I tab, it takes me to interactive stuff on the page.
97. Get directions on Google Maps to Taylor Jonathan. Link to act.
All of the links on this page for directions, they all say, get directions on Google Maps, get directions on Google Maps. So if I'm tabbing around, I'm going to hear that a million times, and I'm not going to know directions for what. So we've added some code in that actually refers to the person's name here.
Form, get directions on Google Maps to Taylor Jonathan. Link to activate.
Taylor Jonathan. So now I know that's what I'm clicking on. So that visually hidden text can be really important. There is an argument that maybe we shouldn't use visually hidden text at all. Maybe it should all just be visual. What's the harm in adding get directions on Google Maps to Taylor Jonathan? But it's a design decision, and so that's how we're handling it here. But yeah, so that's the difference there. That's kind of how JAWS sounds. It's a bit different than VoiceOver. The shortcuts are different. The rotor menu works differently. But at the end of the day, you're doing the same thing, right? You're navigating a website. It's telling you all the things about what you're navigating. I'm going to turn off JAWS.
JAWS context menu. Leaving menus. Quit JAWS subscription. Find.
And now it's off. There's another screen reader I have available here that I can show you. Maybe it's overkill, called NVDA. Similar to JAWS, but announces things a little differently. It's open source, which is very cool. It means it's free. So in the wider world, there is a community of people that uses NVDA because it is affordable. It's affordable and it's pretty darn good too. The VA, the VA's Blind Rehab Centers, teaches JAWS and gives people JAWS, which is a paid thing that costs money. But veterans don't have to worry about that because it's given to them and taught to them by VA. So most of the veterans we encounter that use screen readers on Windows do use JAWS, and that's also what we have available on our GFE. That's what we can request from the Section 508 office. I think the very last thing, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it, so I'll give it a tiny shot, is, and I don't know if you've seen these before. There's a program called Fusion. There's a program called ZoomText. These are third-party magnification apps that I'm going to try to open ZoomText, and we're going to see what happens. If you can't see it, I'll stop. But it basically combines a magnifier with a minor screen reader, like one that doesn't read off every single thing, but reads a good amount of stuff, with color controls and other stuff. It's also really slow to load. Enabled. So this might take a second because it's pretty slow to load.
Windows ZoomText 2026 Professional. Zoom Windows Group Box Zoom Level 1.2 Spin Screen Enhancements. Tool Zoom Pointer.
So it's so slow on my GFE.
ZoomText 2020 Windows ZoomText 2026 Cursor.
But it lets you do a lot of things.
Reader.
There's a reader where I can kind of hover over stuff. It'll read it for me. You can do that using a screen reader too, but most of the screen reader users I've seen use a keyboard. But there are folks who are low vision, use a screen reader, and do this hovering instead of keyboard.
NVDA.
So that's something people can do. I'm going to turn it off really quick.
Voice disabled.
There we go. But there's a magnifier, so I can just kind of bump up the whole page. You're not going to be able to see it. Okay. The entire screen is zooming in by 2 times at this point. I can also alter colors here. I can like change the color scheme. I don't think it's going to work. No, you're not going to be able to see it. Which is a little frustrating, but so be it. But you can see there's a lot of stuff people can do. They can change the size of their cursor and their pointer and make all the focus indicators giant. And this is also something that veterans use. It's kind of a combination. So I'm going to attempt to close out of this program because it is hard to use because it's a little slow on my GFE. I'm going to exit. Okay, and it'll take a minute to close as well. But yeah, that's kind of assistive tech and what it is and how it works, and there's a ton I didn't show you, but these are the tools that we tend to use at VA to test, and they're also the tools that veterans actually use. The one thing I didn't get to show you is how this stuff works on a phone, and basically what happens there is you click and drag your finger. Usually you can also swipe as if you're pressing the tab button to use a screen reader. And I can try to make a little video for that if you're interested. But yeah, I think that's what I got today.
Thanks so much, Jamie. That was super interesting. Thanks for taking the time to show us these tools. I have some questions, but I'll leave it to other folks first if you have questions. Any questions?
I'm very quickly going to try to shut off my GFE and switch back to my contractor computer because everything is frozen. I'll be right back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you.
Ah, that's great. Unfortunately, it's still sharing my screen, even though I turned off my computer. But that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah, so yeah, my question is, so I noticed that it doesn't read, the screen readers don't read like breadcrumbs and URLs. Is that a setting thing, or they just kind of
No,
ignore
they
that?
do. I just skipped over them.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So screen readers will read anything you put that virtual cursor on.
Got it. Okay.
Um, but we have things set up on the website where you can skip over a lot of things for ease of navigation.
Got it. Do you have any like best practices you want to share for like content IA folks?
Yeah, sure. I think we do a lot of it here already, but a lot of it is good writing practices, writing in plain or plainer language, breaking things up into headings and bulleted lists, um, front loading the sentences so that the thing you're trying to get across is more in the beginning of the sentence than the end of the sentence. Like all the stuff we try to do anyway as content people, it turns out it's all really good for accessibility too. Um, People with cognitive disabilities, um, they would have a much easier time understanding content that's written that way. But also, screen reader users, you heard how verbose all that stuff is. Um, just like anyone else, they scan, right? They like maybe they read the first two words of a heading and then they're like, oh, this isn't for me. I'm going to go to the next one, just like we would do if you're sighted. So, breaking things up and front loading and all of that makes it a lot more likely that a screen reader user will actually get the message you're trying to send. Um, yeah, like, so I feel like the content folks here have always like done this thing the way we're supposed to do it. I guess if there's one thing, though, again, I know content's already doing this. The heading structure is really important. Not skipping any heading levels. So, start a page with an H1 and then a subheading is an H2, subheadings an H3. Um, Not jumping between 3 and 5, right? Writing those headings as if they're a table of contents. That is really important. But I think you do that anyway.
Cool. Any questions from anyone else?
No, thank you guys for asking. Seriously, we have the recording. Well, hopefully it worked. Um, I'm gonna stop recording now. Stop recording. Just